Hello everyone, this is Mike goleafsgoeh Leah, and we are here on Wednesday, July 25th, and we're going to be recording a mid-stakes live session today. I just registered for the Big 11, which just started right now. That was the first hand that I played, and I'm also going to late reg for the Hot 1650 Turbo, which is a half hour in. That'll give us a couple tables here to start us off with. Over the next couple hours, I'll be adding the Big 55 and a couple other hot turbos. So this may or may not be called the Big and Hot. Um, anyways, too many jokes to go with from there. All right, so up in the top left here, we have the Big 11. Level 1, and here in the bottom right we have the Hot 1650 Turbo, which looks like we're at 30-60 blinds, so we're going to have about 50 big blinds. Alright, so a couple quick things here. I haven't done a video session in a little while on TPE, so this may be the first time you're watching one of my videos, or you may have seen some of my other ones before. So I apologize if I repeat some things if you've watched some videos before. Here we have 6-5 suited, early position. I'm just going to go ahead and muck this one. Sorry, I'm going to turn off the PokerStars sounds as well so you don't hear the beeping. 1 second. Options. Alright, that should take care of that. Going back to the 6-5, early position, no antes. I'm not often opening hands like that. If it was a rebuy, I might be more inclined to open a hand like that to kind of gamble a little bit. But there's so many people that are going to flat us in position with better hands, and it's just not really going to play that well. I usually don't like to open those types of hands from early position especially. I'd rather flat in position or 3-bet in position with a hand like that. It's going to be easier to play than out of position, because if I raise from early position, most people are only going to be flatting me with pretty strong hands. 6-high isn't going to be the best hand very often, and I may have to go for a big semi-bluff or something like that to try and win the pot. So there's not really much need to take big high variance chances like that early in a tournament. And same thing here, late position raises. I have 9-7 off in the big blind. There's not much point in playing out of position with a very weak hand. Alright, the blinds are actually 40-80 here in this turbo, half hour in, so we were just under 40 big blinds. 9 deuce off in the small blind, blind versus blind. Even if it folded to me, I'm just going to go ahead and fold, and even if it limped in, I probably would have just folded instead of paying the $10. I think I'm often going to lose more chips than I'll gain, even by flopping a pair. Alright. It's interesting here that this person 5x'd raised this pot as opposed to the 3x he did the hand before. That's something I'm going to be looking for, especially early in tournaments here, to try and figure out what people's ranges are and what information they're giving away. Usually a 5x raise is, he's either trying to protect a really big hand, or it's a hand he doesn't like playing post-flop. So some people do that with aces and kings. Some people will do that with like ace, king, and jacks or pocket nines, because he doesn't want to get flatted. So if there's a showdown here, it'll be very useful information. Okay, and we're going to get to see. So let's call the 5x raise with ace-10 suited, which may be a little loose, but this early in the tournament in position, I don't hate it that much. And there we go. That's one of the hands I thought it might be. 8-4 suited on the button in a limped-in pot. Why not? Over 100 big blinds deep. We'll see if we can smash a flop. We're on the button, so we're in position on everybody. Okay, so we flopped a gutter and a backdoor flush draw. If this checks around to me, I'll probably take a stab at it. Bet a little half pot. This might take it down, and if somebody does call, we have a chance to hit our gutter. We might pick up a diamond for the flush draw as well. But yeah, I was folded. It's hard for me to rep much on that flop, but it's really hard for them to rep much either. So unless they decide to look me up with ace high, or maybe check raise me with something, then I'm going to take that down a lot. So here we have ace-7 suited. over here we have pocket fives. This is very, very similar situations in both, in that I think there's more value in limping behind to keep other hands in as opposed to raising to ISO. The huge value of ace high clubs is that maybe I can get someone to flop a lower flush draw, and same thing with pocket fives. I can maybe get someone to flop a pair when I flop a set. This guy's betting out over pot. I could have the best hand. He could just have 5-6 or deuce 5, but he's also likely to have an 8. I'm going to go ahead and take my free card here this time. It's not a good one. I'll just go ahead and give him this pot. Basically, I limped in to try and hit a set. I don't need to get involved calling him down there with an overcard on the board. We'll fold ace rag off. And just like the hand before, I could have taken a stab on this pot with likely the best hand with ace high. Probably would have been a decent bet against the blinds and the one limper who decided not to bet the flop. But we'll go ahead and fold here. Even if I do have the best hand, which is unlikely, he's likely to have some sort of big draw. So I limp behind there with ace-7 of clubs. Again, I think the value is if somebody else has lower clubs and we can flop a flush draw. I'm sure you've seen people get way out of control with the flush draw, so we can get it in with an ace-high flush draw, sometimes against a lower flush draw, and just get a quick, easy double up. Or, of course, if we flop an ace, we can play it cautiously. They might not think we have an ace because we limped in, different things like that. All right, so we got pocket nines. And folds to us. We're going to open for a min raise. If you haven't watched one of my videos before, if I'm opening for a raise, it'll always be a min raise. And as we go, I'll explain a few more reasons for that. And the exceptions would be if I was raising a limper, or of course if I'm 3-betting. But if I'm the first to enter a pot, I'll never be limping and I'll never be raising a different amount than a min raise. And I wanted to get back to this 5x hand here that we have down here. But we'll just see what happens here with the queen 9 suited in the small blind. I would never be calling a raise here. If it folded to me, I would definitely raise. And if it was limped in, I'd go ahead and pay the $40 to see a flop. Or it's not the worst hand in the world to squeeze with. Here we have a decent spot actually with 560 in the pot. We have about 35 big blinds. It's not the worst spot to shove, but I think we'll find some better spots than that. I'm going to fold ace rag here again from early position. All right, so going back to this hand, I thought it was interesting that this guy opened for a 5x raise. And the first things that I said was, he had opened for a 3x the hand before, so his 5x was unusual. So my guess was that it was a hand he was trying to protect, or a hand that he was just basically trying to take it down with because he doesn't want to play a pot with it post flop. So it's often going to be a big hand that he's protecting, like aces or kings, or a hand that like ace king, pocket jacks, or pocket 8s or 9s or 10s, where he just doesn't really know how to play post flop. So he's going to just make a big raise and try and take it down. So this person calls the 5x raise with ace 10 suited and gets an ace high flop. Actually, I'm going to back this up here, see his bet sizing. He bet 120 into, so he bet just over half pot with a C bet. And we got 4-3 suited on the button. This is a hand that I'd often raise on the button if it folded to me, but the fact that the blinds are already 5,100, we only have 28 big blinds. These guys with 27, 28 bigs, they're just going to shove on me a lot in a turbo. Now that I'm under 30 big blinds, there's really not, I'm not going to make very many speculative opens or loose opens. So I'm just going to get 3-better shoved on a lot. I'd rather save my chips to 3-bet shove on somebody else, or obviously to open for value and get a complete double for a bit more. All right, so this guy 5x is jacks. He gets an ace high flop. He c-bets for over half pot. That guy calls. Then he kind of blocker bets the turn when that card comes, and then he checks the river and decides to call a bet. So the flush got there, obviously the ace is there. That guy called 2 bets plus a 5x raise. I don't think he's really beating much with jacks, but he decided to make a really ambitious call. he did have the flush draw when he blocker bet that 5 of clubs, which is what you'd probably expect. All right, here we have an interesting spot coming up. We have king 6 suited. We have an under the gun raise and 3 calls. We're getting about 8 to 1 here to make a call. I'm going to go ahead and speculate here. Basically what we're looking for is probably a flush draw, or some kind of straight, or a 6-6 flop or something like that. I'd be very, very careful if a king hit on the flop, because we're very likely to be out-kicked. Here we end up just flopping a naked gutter ball, and there's a bet and a call, and we'll just get out of the way. Flush draw hits on the turn. All right, so it's very important information we got on this guy here, so we'll make some notes. I don't play these stakes all that often, but you never know when we'll run into them again, or if I, just to remind myself for later on in this tournament. Okay, so $11. The big 11. 5x Jack, level 1. C bet 55%. Ace 4-4. Club flop. Blocker bet 5 of clubs turn with Jack of clubs. Check called. Here he's opening for a 4x. Check called big bet on 7 river. So he obviously doesn't like the fold. He opened for a 5x raise, put in 2 bets and an ace high flop, and then ended up calling a big bet on the river. So it's pretty decent information. He also then limped behind, or he limped this hand, open limped this hand. So couple pieces of information already. This is the player that I like, a player that kind of gives away a lot of information pre-flop on his hand strength based on his his raise size, or whether he opens for a raise or opens for a limp. Those are obviously the easiest players to play against because they're almost playing their cards face up. You may not know exactly what 2 cards they have, but you should have a really good idea of their hand range. When he limps, he's probably going to have a weak ace, or a suited ace, or a suited connector, or a small pair, paint, something like that. Okay, so here we have an early position under the gun min raise, and we have aces. If it had folded to me, I may have just called to try and get some action behind, but now that there's a raise and a call, we're going to go ahead and squeeze and hope that it looks light. Okay, so we will make it just over 3x, which is probably about my standard 3-bet sizing. It kind of depends, obviously, how many flatters there are and what stage of the tournament it is. The later in the tournament it is, my sizing is probably going to be a little bit smaller because everyone's a bit shallower. Early in the tournament, everyone's a bit deeper. Okay, so obviously we gave them a chance here to hit a set of 6s or 4s or jacks. I'm going to go ahead and just bet it and probably play it for max value. Can't see myself folding this hand ever here, especially with a flush draw on board, but you never know. If it went raise shove, maybe we could make a hero fold. Obviously we're hoping here someone has ace jack, or maybe someone's playing queens cautiously, so that guy calls. So if this person gets out of the way, we'll have a choice. Okay, he did not get out of the way. All right, so it looks pretty strong. Likely we're either up against a set, ace jack, or some kind of combo draw, flush draw, something like that. But it's an $11 tournament. We'll go ahead and get this in, which the buy-in really shouldn't make a big difference. It's not the money, it's more just the type of hands that they may be playing. So he ended up getting in with queens. He played very cautiously pre-flop and got the flop he was looking for, and we got a nice double there. So that hand obviously could happen a lot of ways. He could have re-raised pre, especially after I squeezed. He could have re-squeezed. A lot of different things could happen, but ended up working out pretty good for us. All right, we got ace king the next hand. So these guys are 80, 90 big blinds deep. If one of them 3-bet, like here it comes. So I have an option here. Obviously, I could either just flat and play it kind of deceptively, or because it's a squeeze, I'm probably just going to go ahead and maybe play a little bit higher variance here. Maybe he's not going to think I have a good hand twice in a row. So we're going to go ahead and re-raise here. Try and maybe get him to spaz out with ace queen. If he sticks it in here, we're not going to fold, but not going to love the hands that he's going to show up with. He's going to obviously have aces, kings, queens, jacks. Right, so he decided to just call. He's likely to have a mid pair here a lot, maybe ace queen, king queen, and he decided to re-raise with, but then he didn't want to fold. We'll go ahead and put a small bet in here and give him a chance to maybe bluff raise over the top. King jack under the gun, just over 20 bigs. We'll go ahead and fold this, I guess. I don't mind opening king jack in these spots because sometimes people flat with queen jack and 10 jack and stuff. But all right, so he called the 4-bet and then check folded on the flop. So it seems like he maybe had like pocket tens or something like that. And instead of getting him in, he wanted to see a flop. And if no ace or king hit, he probably would have went with it. So that would be my guess. Is he had probably pocket nines, pocket tens, maybe pocket jacks, maybe ace queen suited or something like that. Right, so we're chipping up pretty nice here early. Going back to the king jack. I don't like to open light that often under 30 bigs or just over 20 bigs, but same hands I don't mind, like hands especially like king queen, because if someone does just flat my raise, they're often going to have hands that I've dominated, like king jack or queen 10 suited or jack 10 suited, hands like that. And this one's obviously a turbo. In a turbo, you have a lot more shoving than you have people flatting, so it's not that likely that my raise is going to get around. So again, probably rather save my chips so that I can 3-bet shove on somebody else. Ace king would have re-raised us for sure pre-flop, so we wouldn't have got to see that flop where we got coolered anyway. All right, so we're going to be looking for good shove spots here now in a turbo. We're just over 20 bigs. Blinds are going to be going up quite fast, so we don't want to get too short. So we'll be looking for good 3-bet shove spots. This isn't a bad one. If the button decided to open, it's not a bad spot to shove on him, knowing that he's not going to be able to call that often. Kind of decides to limp instead, which means his hand's not really that strong. We can shove and pick up probably 400 chips here most of the time. I think I'm just going to go ahead and take a really cheap flop here, and maybe we can flop a flush draw or 2-pair and get another c-bet in from the button and shove on that. There's just not really that many chips in pre-flop to shove in case the big blind has a hand or in case he was trapping. We're risking our tournament life for only picking up 400 chips. We end up getting a raise from the big blind on a call, so we'll get out of the way. And would have been a flop that we went with. I probably would have checked the flop to try and get one of them to bet so that we can shove over the top, as opposed to just leading out or open shoving. Interesting hand here. So the big blind bet out pretty strong and the button called. So the button's going to have a lot of draws here probably. Probably has some sort of 7 in his hand, or maybe he flopped 2-pair or straight or something. Right. So he flopped a nut flush draw against aces. All right, so if I had decided to shove on his limp, we would have got called by aces and would have lost. It's interesting. So he limped the button with a suited ace. I don't think, even though he has a pretty strong hand here with ace-3 on the button, I don't think he would have called our shove pre-flop. I'll go ahead and fold this one. There's still 2 people here that could raise. The big blind's going to shove a lot. We will fold our 9-3 suited from the big. And so the blinds went up, so now 75, 150. We're under 20 big blinds. Again, we're looking for good shove spots here. And we have Jack 10 off in the small blind over here in the big 11. And made a kind of a reckless shove pre-flop. We would have made a runner flush. Just over or just under 20 bigs. This we could have shoved pre. Obviously, the guy that limped for his whole stack is calling, but this guy may not call very often. Might have got through. Again, with this stack under 20 bigs, I'm actively looking for shove spots. I just decided not to take that one with the suited Jack 6. Again, hopefully I'm expecting that we're going to get some better chances with some more quality hands. Maybe we'll wake up like a monster with a monster like Jacks, or maybe we'll just find a good 3-bet shove spot. So I'm hoping here the short stack puts it in. He does not, so I'm just going to open for a min raise. Hopefully we get some action. My min raise looks pretty strong, but it is a turbo, so someone's not folding 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, or anything like that. So kind of unlucky not to get action there. But we picked up the blinds and antes and back up to about 20 bigs. So here we have 8-4 suited on the button again. This is a different limper now. We'll go ahead and limp behind on the button again. We're in position on everyone else that's in the hand. We're a little bit shallower now. The blinds are 20-40. They're all under 100 big blinds, but I have almost 200 or 175, so this is a hand I probably wouldn't go ahead and bet that flop, just because probably they're calling with any pair, king high or flush draw or anything else. All right, so we're very comfortable in this one. Should be up near the chip lead. A double in a nice pot early. With king 10 here, early position, just under 20 bigs. We'll be open folding this one. If this really short stack decide to go in with 4.5 bigs, it's not the worst spot maybe to ISO his shove, but I still have 6 people behind. I think I probably would have folded from this position if he went all in. It's close. I'd probably go with, definitely king queen, maybe king jack. We'll fold that. And we have 10-8 suited here. So, with the stack early in the tournament, you can maybe speculate a little bit more. It's kind of like just, you're all of a sudden deeper than everyone else and deeper in comparison with the blinds and where you started. So this is a hand that I don't mind a fold here. I don't mind ISOing, and I don't mind limping behind. Again, as I just talked about, I don't mind speculating a little bit more now because I'm so deep compared to the blinds. So we'll limp behind. It's only 40 chips out of our 7,000. We can flop a straight or 2-pair, big combo draw or something like that. Of course, the other way to go is just folding a mediocre hand like this and not getting involved. Or, of course, I could ISO the 2 limps and give myself, a couple different ways to win the hand. By raising, I could win the hand obviously by hitting, or I could raise the hand by them just missing and me taking it down with a c-bet. So here I have backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, 10 high. I probably wouldn't have bothered taking a stab at that, because even if they have hands like king jack or jack 10, they're going to end up peeling anyway. I'm probably not going to win it with 1 bet. I probably would have had to make a multiple street, semi-bluff or bluff on that hand. So we just limped in for 40 to speculate. I don't mind just giving up small pots to try and win a big pot. All right, the blinds are up to 1-2. We're now 14 big blinds. I think it's a little bit too much to shove. We're only picking up 500 again, risking our tournament life in 2,800 just to pick up 5. Doesn't seem quite worth it. If we were in late position, cut off button, small blind, definitely would have just went ahead and shoved that. So many less people behind, and great chance to pick up 500 chips in the blinds and antes without having to go through too many people, and also the chance that I can get called by worse, by king queen, king jack if I'm shoving from late position. Okay, would have ran into ace king, would have sucked out. So again, still actively looking for shove spots now. I'll be down to 13 big blinds unless I get a walk here, as I won't be defending with the 7 deuce. Okay, we're getting just under 2-1. If I'm getting over 2-1, you can justify a call with just about any 2 cards. Although I probably would have folded 7 deuce off, getting even a little bit over 2-1. If I was getting close to 3-1, I'd probably go ahead and make the call. All right, so here we have ace 3 offsuit in the small blind. Big blind, right, folded and made it easy for us, or the button, I mean. If the button would have opened for a min raise or something, I probably would have went ahead and shoved over the top with the chance that he could fold. Or of course, the chance he could fold call with a worse hand, like king high or queen jack or something. And maybe even fold a better hand like ace 5 or ace 6, ace 7, pocket deuces or something. It's weird early position raise. We'll go ahead and fold our ace deuce. Okay, I'm just going to remind myself here what the next tournament I was going to enter. I think it would be the Hot 75 Turbo, which starts in 4 minutes. Okay, so we'll have one more turbo joining us pretty shortly. Then a half hour after that, we have the big 55 starting, and then a half hour after that, we'll have the Hot 55 Turbo. So we may get up to about 3 or 4 tables at a time, maybe 5 if I end up making some really deep runs, which should just give us a few extra tables with the turbos going as we're playing the big 11, the big 55, which will be the main deep stacks we're playing today. Go ahead and analyze that hand since we're not in anything here. See how they got that many chips in. Okay, so this guy decides to open ace queen from late position with a standard 2.5x raise. Folds to the big blind, who's 50 big blinds deep, and he shoves. Pretty interesting. Okay, that guy isos the limp. We'll go ahead and fold the king deuce. And that guy decides to call off with ace queen suited, which is interesting all around. If I have the ace queen, I'm trying to think about what that person's hand ranges is. Like, you should never have aces, kings, or queens with such a big overshove. Pardon me. But I think he's going to have ace king a decent amount of time, and he's going to have lower pairs a lot. I don't think he's going to show up with ace jack or ace 10 very often. So I don't know. It's hard to fold ace queen suited. It's such a pretty hand. But I think if you factor in all of his hand ranges, which is ace king and smaller pairs, you're racing or dominated, and I think you could probably just fold, being that you only have 100 chips invested. He decided to make the call, and he won a race against pocket fours. So, and it's pretty interesting the way that both these guys decide to play this hand, so we'll make some notes. First on the guy that's still in the tournament. So big 11, 2.5x with ace queen suited from hijack, called 50 big blind jam from big blind. Okay, we have ace 7 suited. The blinds are now up to 125, 250. So we are just under 12 big blinds. If it folds to me, I will go ahead and shove this, picking up 600, just over 20% of my stack. We got called, and we're going to need 3 outer, or 6 to chop, or we're dead. Alright, that'll do it for that turbo. Oh, we haven't covered, so we're not dead yet. If you remember, this guy was the guy that was down to, I think, like 150 chips. So never dead to dead. It's only king 3 offsuit, but we already have 30 of our stack in the middle from our ante. So we'll go ahead and stick it in with king high. And we'll go ahead and open pocket 8s for min raise. It's the big blind who just got 50 big blinds in with ace queen. It's also the guy that 3-bet called our 4-bet and check folded on that king high flop. We're heads up against the blinds here. And we have the best hand, but he's open-ended, so he can hit a king, a 7, an 8, or a 9. He hit a 9, and that'll do it for us. This guy's tanking here. He decides to just call. He's maybe thinking about 3-betting, but remember that we 4-bet him last time. We'll go ahead and c-bet this, half the pot, and protect our hand, try and get some information. We'll Both these guys are fairly deep. Obviously, if we get check raised, we get put in a pretty difficult spot, but we took it down, so protected our hand against probably a bunch of overcards. Okay, we'll fold the queen 8. We'll finish our note on this guy. Three bet, jammed, 50 BBs, 4-4 from big blind versus hijack 2.5x. Okay, and I also just want to double check that this is the same guy that 3-bet us and called our 4-bet. Pretty sure it is. Yes, it is. Okay, so he 3-bet us out of the big, called our 4-bet, check folded. And I never saw this hand. He must have been in hand on the other tables. Let's see how he played jacks. So he has pocket jacks on the button. He opens for 3x raise. Button 3 bets, but just a 2x 3-bet. Really small 3-bet. If this was me, let's see, 2000. It's interesting. Almost 70 big blinds deep at 1530. Button versus big blind. I'm kind of torn on whether I would just flat to pot control / disguise the strength of my hand, or if I'd go ahead and 4-bet and play for my stack. I'm fine with either. He decides to 4-bet, and he gets that guy to stuff, and that guy has the ace-7 offsuit. Interesting. So, and that's the advantage of playing it for max value and putting in the 4-bet, is you can get the big blind to shove a very wide variety of hands by flatting. You're kind of disguising the strength of your hand, so you maybe get him to just keep firing off on that board. He might just c-bet and stuff the turn, or if he does have aces, kings, or queens, or ace king, you can see how the flop and turn comes and maybe get away from it, or maybe he gets scared and slows down if he has you beat, or if he has ace king and the flop comes ace high, you can get away a lot cheaper. Different reasons for flatting or for 4-betting. And again, I'm kind of torn down the middle of how I would play it depending on what information I have. The notes that we had on that guy, that was a guy that 5x jacks, and here he's just putting in a 2x 3-bet. So to me, with that tiny bit of information that I have, would tell me that maybe he doesn't have that strong of a hand because he only 2x'd instead of putting in a big bet like he put in the jacks. So maybe I'd go ahead and 4-bet that, thinking that he's probably weak. Maybe get him to spaz, or again, maybe even just get him to call the 4-bet and you get some extra value that way. A lot of different ways you could play that hand. Okay, we have deuces under the gun. And we'll go ahead and open for a min raise. Now again, as I mentioned, we're only going to be opening for min raises. That's all I do at any stage of the tournament if I'm opening the pot. One of the main reasons is that we're disguising the strength of our hand, or our hand range. We're going to be making the same raise with deuces as we make with aces, or ace king, or ace jack, or pocket nines, or anything else. So they shouldn't ever be able to put us on a pretty good range of hands. So we got 3 callers, ace high flop. If they don't have an ace, I could obviously win the pot with a c-bet, because they're probably going to fold most times, unless maybe they have a 7. But I think there's a pretty good chance one of them has an ace, so I'll save the c-bet and just check fold. I play my small pocket pairs the same as I play my big pocket pairs, and because I'm only opening for a min raise, it gives me a chance to speculate and try and hit a set without putting a lot of chips in the middle. If someone does decide to 3-bet me, the 3-bet's going to be smaller, so maybe I can call their 3-bet for set value, or if I open for a bigger amount, it might price me out. So it gives me a chance to speculate for smaller amounts. Also gives me a chance to steal the blinds for smaller amounts. But one of the best examples of why I like a min raise is in terms of the hand ranges that you get to play against. So let's say instead of deuces, let's say I have king queen under the gun, and I open for a min raise. The person on the button if they have, let's say they have king jack suited or queen jack suited or 10 jack or something like that, they're quite likely to call the min raise, and I get to play against the hand that I have dominated, or even better than that, we use the big blind as an example. The big blind's probably going to call a min raise with all of those hands: king jack, queen jack, 10 jack, king 9 suited, whatever, queen 8 suited. I'll go ahead and fold 6-9 offsuit, blind on blind, out of position, no antes. If I open for 3x or a 4x raise, the big blind's probably going to fold all of those, queen jack, queen 10 hands that I have dominated. So by opening for a min raise, I'm keeping in the hands that I have dominated, and the hands that have me beat, like ace king, ace queen, he's probably still going to, he's never going to fold. He's going to call, or he's going to re-raise. So by opening for a bigger amount, I'm still going to get resistance from the hands that have me beat, but I'm folding out the hands that I have dominated. Or if I open for a min raise, I'm keeping in the hands that I've dominated. And if I do run into a bigger hand that decides to 3-bet me, well, then I'm, putting in less chips than if I open for a big raise. So there's a couple reasons why I like the min raise as opposed to bigger raise. That was an interesting hand there. We'll go through that in a sec. So I know I made a couple notes on min raising that I want to talk about, so make sure I covered those there. King 6 off, we'll fold from the cut, and we'll go back to that hand there that just happened. All right, so we have queens, and we have ace 4 of hearts. We have a limp. We have a 4x ISO from queens, which is fairly standard. I might make it about 3x, 3.5x, depending on what stage of the tournament. At this stage, being that there's no antes and this guy's fairly deep, this player's 44 bigs deep. I'd probably make it, somewhere around maybe like 170, 175, something like that. I don't want to fold out my action, but I, want to maybe avoid making it a 5 or a 6-way pot, or, making it too cheap for too many people to call. But again, talking about the min raises, you don't want to fold out, the hands that you have dominated. If someone has queen jack suited, I still want them to call. All right, so this person with ace 4 of hearts and 34 big blinds decides to flat the ISO with ace 4 suited. It's pretty spewy. It's not very deep, only 34 bigs deep. He is in position, but there's a chance someone else could still, squeeze or re-raise, and he'd have to fold. So he's putting in a pretty hefty percentage of his stack, speculating where he might not even get to see the flop. So it's a pretty loose call. He ends up getting, a decent flop for him, obviously, when he flops the nut flush draw. And this person with queens, with a king 3 flop, only has to worry about someone having a king when there's 2 kings out there. So he decides to c-bet pretty small, less than half. That guy shoves. Now, king 8 suited. There's 2 people in position, so when I'm considering whether or not I'm going to open this hand for a raise, I'm looking at how many people can flat me in position, and there's a couple of them. Again, the other option here is, someone could limp in, and we could just limp in behind and speculate really cheap. Of course, I could just raise an ISO, but I don't mind keeping pot small right now. We've chipped up pretty decently. We'll keep the pot small. We'll just speculate 50 chips and see if we can hit a decent flop and win a big pot for putting in a small amount. If I decide to ISO his limp, I'd be putting in 175. It's going to cost me a lot more with a c-bet. Obviously, it gives me more ways to win the pot, but we're building a bigger pot. So here we have top pair and a backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and check this. We'll maybe get the button to bluff. We're also controlling the size of the pot in case we are dominated, or in case we're against a big draw like queen jack of clubs or something. I'm going to go ahead and bet. The only person I'm really worried about here is the button, who might have checked behind a 6 on the flop. I think if one of these guys had a 6, they probably would have led it on the turn. Okay, so we got called. It seems like he maybe has a 10. I don't think he would have checked a king on the flop. He could still be slow playing a 6, but it seems like he has a 10. Again, I don't think he has the queen jack because he probably would have gone ahead and bet that on the flop. So I'll go ahead and value bet, try and get him to call the 10. He folded. It's interesting. I guess he might have just had like an ace high Broadway draw there, or we'll go back to that one in a sec. I just don't want to lose this other hand that we were talking about. Okay, so this guy shoves 1500. If we're this guy with the queens, and this guy shoves, basically he should have a flush draw a lot of the time. He might have like pocket jacks or tens that he's now shoving, which doesn't make much sense, but some people would do that. Or, of course, he may just be shoving a king, but I think this, if I was this person, I'd be thinking this person probably doesn't have a king because he probably would have just called and slow played his three kings. So it seems like a flush draw is the most likely hand. So I would probably call with queens here as well. And he ends up having the overcard, which he hits, and then he hits the flush anyway. So now going back to the hand that we just played. So I explained my reasons for limping in. Again, just, we're just keeping the pot small at this point. There's no antes. If this person was as deep as me, maybe I'd raise the ISO into, because they're really deep, but there's a lot of reasons to do both. Right. So here we'll just kind of stick with the plan. I'd obviously rather limp behind this hand from late position than early position, because there's so many people that are going to be in position with us if they limp behind as well. And of course, someone might just raise and we're sacrificing 60 chips. But, queen jacks, half decent hand that we can see some flops with, but someone raised and we'll just go ahead and get out of the way, even if a bunch of people called. We don't want to play a big pot with queen jack out of position. We'll have a look. So the under the gun limper does call. We fold, and that person calls as well. And we flop a gutter ball and backdoor flush draw. See if Pimple decides to c-bet this one. And after we go through that king 8 hand, I'll jump in that other turbo that I'm going to. So we checked behind the flop, he called our bet on the turn, and then he folded on the river. So what do we think he has? It's quite likely he has a hand like ace-jack or ace-queen that he decided not to raise pre-flop. Maybe he thinks he has the best hand with ace-high and he has a Broadway draw. I really don't think he has a flush draw or queen-jack, because you would think that he would bet those on the flop. And if he calls our bet with a 10 on the turn, you would think he would call on the river as well. I decided to value bet the river because I thought he had a 10, or again, he might have had a 6 or a draw. If he has a 10, he's going to pay us off most of the time. If he has a 6, he's probably raising or making a tight just call, and we can get away. The advantage of maybe checking to him is if he did have a draw, he might have bluffed it. But I decided to bet for value against a 10. And probably fold if we got raised because he probably has a 6. Or if we check, we're giving him a chance to check back his 10, but we're giving him a chance to bluff a misdraw. And I just don't think he had a strong misdraw because I think he would have bet that on the flop. And if he only has ace-jack or ace-queen, he's probably going to check behind that on the river because he thinks that he has the showdown value, but the same reason he called the turn bet with. All right, so there's that hand. All right, and we will fold our 10-7 offsuit, and we will jump in the hot 75 turbo.